start now again.
Welcome. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you all for joining us here today. My name is Keisuke Sadamori. I'm the Director of Energy Markets and Security at the IEA. I'm pleased to be moderating this second session of our fifth annual global conference on energy efficiency. In this session, we will focus on the role of energy efficiency in creating jobs and supporting socio-economic development in both the COVID-19 recovery in the short term and also the clean energy transitions in the longer term. This topic is also at the center of the recommendations of the Global Commission for Urgent Action on Energy Efficiency, which was launched yesterday and includes specific recommendations on energy efficiency as a sustainable job sector. And as introduced earlier this morning in Dr. Fatih Birol's the opening address in the first session of this conference, the new IEA Sustainable Recovery Plan in the WIO Special Report sets out the huge global job potential from investments in clean energy with a strong focus on energy efficiency. So for this session, I'm very much looking forward to hearing from all speakers from the government and industry, their perspectives on how energy efficiency could be scaled up across different sectors and by different actors to realize these job creation and economic benefits will be most welcome. We would also like to encourage participation from the general audience joining us live on social media channels. Please use the hashtag the efficiency 2020. You're also welcome to send us your questions for our speakers. Please send them to the email address that is on the screen now, energy.efficiency@iea.org. Also, we would like to encourage audience participation by starting off with a live online survey question. You just need to go to the website Menti, MENTI.com, and enter the passcode shown now on the screen. Okay, so you still see the passcode at the top of the screen. So let us go to the first question. So our first question reads as follows. So which type of organization do you represent? Please go ahead and pick your organization from the list of the screen. So there are the government agencies, international organizations or NGO, financial sector, industries and business, consulting and academia. Okay, so yeah, it's lost from the screen, but we have an interesting outcome. So now we have nearly 100 responses, and the industry and business, of course, they'll be the one to make investments and to create jobs. The has the largest number, followed by the government and the international organizations. So they're the policy setters, and also the one to facilitate the international cooperation. But we also see substantial number of consulting, academia, and also we have a small number of financial sector as well. So we seem to have a quite a good representation in terms of the types of the organizations the participants belong to. Thank you. Thank you very much. So now let us get started with our great lineup of keynote speakers. To kick off, I would like to invite our first keynote speaker, who is also a member of the Global Commission, Her Excellency Dr. Amani Abu Zaid, Commissioner for Infrastructure and Energy, African Union, commissioned to share her insights. So Dr. Abu Zaid, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and allow me to greet everyone on the panel, but also the audience. This is indeed a distinguished panel, and by the look also at the outcome of the survey you just conducted, I think we have an excellent representation of the various stakeholders in this field. Allow me also to thank IEA for organizing this very important conference at a critical time in the world. Indeed, energy efficiency is needed now more than ever, I would say. We all know that energy efficiency, I mean, is important for to accelerate the transition. It helps with the energy savings and to reach climate targets. It takes, as I said, a special meaning now under the unprecedented crisis that the world is living. The COVID-19 has caused unprecedented disruptions around the world. Healthcare systems are struggling and have been struggling, and hundreds of millions of people rely on electricity while confined to their homes. The pandemic is now spreading across Africa, home to the majority of those who live without electricity. To avoid the worst impacts and to help contain the virus, we must act now to deploy solutions that can provide life-saving energy access to those who need it most. Energy services, as you know, is key to prevent diseases and fight pandemics, from powering healthcare facilities to supply clean water for essential hygiene, to enabling communication and digital services that connect people while maintaining social distances. And it's practically the only means for us to communicate and connect now. Yet, in our continent, only 49% of the population of Africa has access to energy. And in sub-Saharan Africa, 1 in 4 clinics does not have energy at all. Only 28% of health facilities in sub-Saharan Africa don't have consistent access. These are very alarming numbers, and this is a very, very fragile situation that we are living in Africa, especially under these circumstances, as I said. Reliable power supply would ensure that the health programs function, the healthcare functions, that people are connected, that children are educated, because even education now has moved to be entirely online. And as much alarming as the situation is, it's also probably a great opportunity to accelerate energy transition. And in the continent, we can call it energy transition, which means from one source to another, but access in general. And we have been really promoting renewable energy, and we think even in this dire situation, renewable energy can help a lot. We are fast-tracking programs for mini-grid, off-grid solutions using renewable energy, particularly for the facilities I just mentioned, health facilities, education facilities, and some critical economic facilities, water pumping stations. And we are also trying to push further, across the continent for larger programs for renewable energy at a regional or continental level. Now, it is important also to note that the current situation, it's true, it's as much as things are complicated, but there is, what we have seen also is there's a synergy and the will to cooperate and to work together. So we want to also to benefit from this momentum to build on this cooperation and move forward in implementing the emergencies I just mentioned in terms of the health facilities and schools. But also that's for the resilience part, but also for the recovery. Recovery in Africa, energy is at the center of everything, as you know. And there is an opportunity even for those who do not have access to start afresh or to start in a way that is green and that is also more stable even than traditional sources of energy. And we would like to see this mobilization happening in a more practical manner in terms of solutions to be provided. I listened very carefully to the panel, to the opening this morning, and there were excellent interventions, also talks about even the mini grids and the batteries. And I think these are all solutions that we need to adopt. Another element also that is very relevant for Africa that I would like to emphasize is energy for domestic use or for cooking. I would like to remind audience that 870 million Africans use charcoal or firewood for cooking and for domestic use. That's a major health hazard, respiratory systems, but also it causes fatalities and deaths, mainly among women and girls. And we have the opportunity again to have on the continent abundance of natural gas, which is a cleaner source of energy that we need to deploy at least in the cities and going forward to expand the access to clean energy for cooking. All of this is going to contribute for energy efficiency. And in the case of Africa, not only we have an opportunity under the pandemic, but we have an opportunity in general, the fact that we are still growing and we can afford to adopt the newer and cleaner technologies that are available. One last thing I wanted to say is that also we have created a commission in specializing in energy efficiency that helps capacitate and provide policy advice to our countries in Africa, focusing and also gathering data with the help of IEA, the valuable help of the IEA, and we need to see that Africa is doing a greater job, and its role is going to be even greater in the coming time. I think that as much as it is a crisis, it is an opportunity, and it's up to us, all of us, to use it to our benefit and the benefit of our population. And I really look forward to listening to everyone, and to more than listen, I look forward to working along with everyone and see a practical way, as I said, of this cooperation happening in one of the regions that are most fragile in the world. And I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Zaid. for these the excellent remarks. Yes, the energy efficiency is very important for the Africans' development. So if I may ask one question to you. So about this, the point that the energy efficiency can help the Africa's development. So what do you think they are the most important the policies to actually help achieve that? What is your view on this point?
At the African Union level, we have a series of actions and policies, I mean, focusing on renewable energy, and we do promote renewable energy with our member states, the 55 member states. Large programs that we are deploying are focusing on renewable energy, whether it's using digital means, and we are adopting also the smart technologies in that sense. So digitalization, and especially the use of smart grids, the data is very important at this point, you know, for us even to allow a proper understanding of the situation and also advise on certain solutions. We are working also with the urban aspect. I mean, the cities that are being created across Africa. Remember, Africa is also the fastest urbanizing city. We are working with governments to make sure that at least in the newer cities, that aspects of that energy efficiency is included in the deployment of infrastructure in these cities, and many of them are already adopting smart infrastructure solutions. The African Union has a large program for renewable energy called Africa Renewable Energy Initiative, and that is again is focusing on energy transition per se. I must say that most of our countries they already adopted many encouraging approaches to energy transition and renewable energy. We need and they've been helped, and everybody has been helped by the fact that prices have been of renewable energy, you know, has been affordable now and much more cheaper than before. So they're competitive, and we afford to use them, and they're more stable than any other source. So there are a variety of initiatives across the continent to help with that. We are also trying to promote this across now when we are talking about stimulus packages across the continent. So working also with IFIs and working with our governments to promote energy efficiency as we go. And the fact that energy efficiency can also help us and energy efficiency through the various aspects, whether it's upgrading the existing grids or the new smart grids, or the MEPs, or adopt or implementing new facilities, renewable facilities. They all also help us free more energy to allow more access to more people. I think there is lots of incentives for us to move forward, and it's important that we also use this opportunity of COVID-19 to help with that. Reminding everybody that renewable energy can help create about 2 million new jobs in Africa. Thank you. 2 million green jobs. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, the Dr. the Abzaid, for sharing your insights to the question, and also for your very insightful contributions as a member of the Global Commission. Thank you very much for that. As IEA is strengthening the IEA's collaboration with Africa across all energy technologies, it is clear that energy efficiency is a very important part of this work. And your remarks today will contribute to making our conversations with Africa much more interesting and more important. So thank you very much again. Now, I would like to invite Mr. Kim Fausing, the President and the CEO of the Danfoss, to present his keynote speech. I wonder if the video connection is it doesn't seem to be working, but I hope that he can contribute orally. So, Mr. Kim Fausing?
Yeah, thank you very much,
Thank you.
So unfortunately, yeah, we have to stay on just verbal. We cannot make the camera work today. Hopefully this works as well. So, but first of all, Your Excellencies, colleagues, thank you very much for this big chance to just share a few words to this really important gathering here today. I've had the opportunity at a couple of events lately, also with Mr. Fatih Birol, to speak to global energy and climate ministers as well about this. And I do really think it's good to see that there is a very high understanding and focus now to move the needle. So the first thing is, of course, can the world really pay attention now to climate change while fighting the coronavirus? And I think we all experience a lot of challenges around us for the moment. The corona challenge that has, or crisis that has become also a quite big financial challenge all over the world. And at the same time, seeing this, of course, it's very evident that we need to be really clear to bring the economy back on track. And as it then comes, this is a great opportunity then as well to really do the right things as we stimulate the economy to come back. Where do we do that and how do we do that? That's really a chance in order to do the right thing at the same time and really invest in the green restart. And the green restart also happens to take care of a lot of potential and existing global jobs. There's certainly a win here. So Danfoss, we are basically a global clean tech technology provider that is working broadly to support the transition. And so there from my take on this, and I really enjoyed also now hearing some of the presentations and the comments here today. And I think basically, of course, we are very aligned. And therefore, in essence, this is about creating traction and speed in the implementation. And I think it's an obvious place to start. Also very aligned with IEA's own data is, of course, if we take a look at the global cities today, where we have around 70% of global greenhouse gas emission on 3% of the land in general on the globe. I think making investments in the green transition here makes a lot of sense and has a very good remedy. It's no doubt that the agenda, as we see it, is already set and is very clear. I think that's also coming over here today. But the new dimension maybe also is now globally that making the investments in the green transition also would touch around 10% of the global workforce, which are today in construction or manufacturing related to buildings or other related activities. So by doing this, we really serve several purposes. And I also want to say that a lot of these initiatives is really good business. It's not only that we need to do the right thing, it's also a lot of good business opportunities for the cities, for the global community, actually with quite short payback time. And this has also been now, I just read a late Navigant report that also confirms that urban areas can get on track for these 1.5 degree target and significantly reduce emissions over the next years if we do the right things. And it's really the three areas that I would then like just to touch very briefly on as we see it and where we can definitely see huge potential, where we have technology ready to go. And first of all, energy efficiency is core of this transition. It's also often at least the lowest hanging fruit. that energy efficiency in heating and cooling of buildings, including district energy, and also coupling that with sector integration is a very big lever, and it's a lever that you can get jobs on tomorrow by stimulating this. And when I talk about sector integration, of course, it's about also using some of all the energy that is available around us right now. I mean, to give some examples, we can see that a data center, the only byproduct by all the data centers today being built around the world, is really a lot of heat. And we can see now taking a standard, not too big data center can actually heat 7,000 houses in a community here. That example is from Denmark, but also a really small convenience store, supermarket can heat maybe 10, 15 houses, and that energy is just out there, not to talk about industrial processes. And first of all, energy efficiency and also coupling sectors is a really great opportunity for doing things with a very short payback time and with a job effect tomorrow. And of course, the other side of this is the electrification agenda that goes hand in hand, really stepping up on production of green energy, solar, wind, hydropower, and so on, in order to really underbuild the electrification of cars, buses, trucks, marine vessels, and so on. So I think these areas and with the industrial eyes on it, with all the investments that has been done in the industry, including on digital technology that is also available today, means that we are actually ready to move forward. The technology is there, and therefore it's an opportunity to go forward together, hand in hand, between industry, government, cities, and so on and so forth. And I think this is, of course, nothing new for everybody listening into this. So what do we need? What do we need to do? So we, in our opinion, need to step up the cooperation in general in order to really make sure that it's not only that we know about this, that this really get part of the economical recovery packages. There has to be made decisions on regulation and planning. Yeah, it has to be prioritized, that this is the key in building infrastructure. We have to find the funding and so on. And while cities can take the lead and certainly also are taking the lead, still we need a more holistic approach that also makes sure that it has the appropriate support and cooperation from government. And with this, we definitely believe that this situation we're in now could, if we channel the right investments into it, could be a restart or an acceleration for the climate agenda. So just to sum it up briefly. So first, we see the green restart as a great opportunity. As Danfoss, we are a global clean tech technology provider across these different three sectors that I have mentioned here, and they have absolutely the potential. So that's the first point. We have a site here around our headquarters. We have made a good example out of where we will be CO2 neutral with more than 250,000 square meters and almost 4,000 people. We will be CO2 neutral by 2022, not by doing magic. So that's the first point, that the green restart is the right choice in order to both boost economies, create jobs, and then do the right things. I think these three areas, and that's the second point, by focusing in on them, and it's also been shown time after time, also from great work at the IEA, that the three sectors of energy efficiency, electrification combined with green energy, and then sector coupling is the recipe. And we have there the technology ready. And then for the third point is just that we need to work close together in order to make sure that we stimulate this and there's no missing links. So with that, I would like to conclude and thank you all for listening into this short outline. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Fausings, for adding an industry perspective as the key technology provider in this area. Thank you very much for that. And also, we would appreciate you for reminding us of the importance of cities in energy efficiency action. And that is the theme also emphasized in the recommendation by the Global Commission. And we'll be discussing further on this later today. If I may ask a follow-up question for you, Mr. Fausing. So you talk about the need for kind of stepping up the cooperation, and so how can we foster more partnership between the industry and government, including the city, the local governments?
Yeah, thank you very much for that question, and it's a really great question, because it's absolutely instrumental. And what we can see in the moment is that it's not a lack of will, it's not a lack of financing when we look at these big stimulus packages that is sort of starting to emerge around us. So essentially, it's about having all hands on deck and a historical level of cooperation between industry, cities, government. And I can't help just using an example here from Denmark, where we have sort of a history of decoupling economical growth and the emissions. We have had now, and there's been set some quite ambitious targets, sort of a 70% target by 2030 here, and there has been established we established actually, or designated 13 climate partnerships between industry and government, of all of them where there was lead by an industrial leader for the relevant sectors. And through that, we simply had a bottom-up approach, sort of over a few months to actually come up with an ambitious plan and best priorities in order to drive this transition forward to reach a 70% target in 2030. And therefore, I think, it takes that we reach out and that we are able to put the framework now in place to really stimulate this and remove barriers. And that's what we have also seen in Denmark. It's smaller things, but it all makes it go too slow. But by teaming up directly with cities, which we are doing, but teaming also up between government and industry, we can actually move the needle as we see it much faster. Technology is there and it's ready. We have just to team up.
That was very interesting, Mr. Fausing, and thank you for adding a new perspective to the discussion here today. So your and Dr. Abu Zaid's remarks made a great start for this session, with very important implications for the upcoming panel discussions. So thank you very much to both Dr. Abu Zaid and Mr. Fausing. Now,
thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Now, it is time to engage with our audience once more by moving to the Menti platform, where we have a new question to give us some more food for thought in our discussion. As you can see on the screen, the question reads, what do you think are the most effective the energy efficiency policy measures for boosting jobs and supporting development as part of a clean energy transitions, the economic recovery package? I'll give you a few seconds to pick two from the list. So please go ahead. Yeah, Well, the number seems to be still increasing, but this is very interesting that the grants for building retrofits seems to have the very kind of strong number one, collecting a lot of the votes. Incentives for the efficient appliances, that's a second. And also in the third, the third one is the capacity building programs. And this is actually very encouraging for us, as IEA has been the kind of enhancing our efforts on the capacity building very much in the recent years. So thank you very much for this. So this is a great insight, not only for us, but also to many experts and policymakers around here. So thank you very much for this, for these votes. Now, okay. So we will move on to our distinguished panel. And I would like to remind you that if you have any questions you would like to contribute to these discussions, please direct them to the energy.efficiency@iea.org. Now, I'm joined by four very knowledgeable and engaging panelists to continue our discussion on energy efficiency actions to create jobs and support development. I would like to invite each speaker to make a short the opening remark to introduce herself and share one or two key messages on the topic. So now let us start with Mr. Saurabh Kumar, who is the Managing Director of Energy Efficiency Services Limited in India. Over to you, Mr. Kumar, for this brief introduction, please.
Thank you, Mr. Sadamori. Thank you, IEA, for hosting us. And it's a very distinguished panel, and let me thank everyone on the panel. My name is Saurabh Kumar. I work in a company called Energy Efficiency Services Limited. This is one of the largest energy service company, which is backed by the government of India. We have been doing a lot of energy efficiency programs, not just in India, but also outside of India as well. The program that really made us famous was the LED bulb program, where in the last 4 or 5 years, we have distributed more than 362 million LED bulbs. Also, we did retrofits for street lights, where we replaced conventional street lights with smart LED lights. We've done about 11 million. And in just these two programs, over the last 4 years, we have been able to generate almost 80,000 to 100,000 jobs, which were never existent. So the message here is very clear. Energy efficiency is the way to create jobs. It's a way to respond to a pandemic where more and more cost consciousness is needed. And this is really the way to go as far as clean energy and climate change is concerned. IEA has already said this in most of the reports, that more than 50% of mitigation actions can be contributed by energy efficiency. And I think this is the time now to really take this up in a very, very large scale. And we have shown that it can be scaled up. We have gone through the issues and problems of financing, of capacities, of project formulation. And we have been able to create a company which was 7 years ago, less than $1 million turnover company. This year, we will cross about $400 million US. So it is possible to have commercial scale energy efficiency virtually everywhere, just like you can do it in renewable energy. So I think my basic message is that we as energy professionals need to now give energy efficiency the space, the recognition that it deserves for a very long time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kumar. Next, we have Mr. Pierre-André de Chalenda, the chairman and the CEO of Saint-Gobain. Mr. Chalenda, can we have your brief introduction, please? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I'm very happy to be with you today. Just a word on Saint-Gobain. Saint-Gobain is a major supplier of sustainable construction solutions. We employ 170,000 people in 70 countries, and we generate sales of around 40 billion euros. And energy efficiency is clearly at the heart of our business model. I would like to start by paying a tribute to the IEA for putting this topic at the core of its agenda, and especially with what Dr. Fatih Birol is playing as a role as a leader in this topic. I think it's extremely commendable, and I am very happy to participate in this effort and to build on the other what the other speakers have been saying. There is a big opportunity today with a crisis to use it as an acceleration of the energy transition, and especially in the area of energy efficiency. So what I would like to talk about is buildings, which is the major, the most important, area where energy is consumed. 40% of the energy consumed in the world is related to building, and that's where we know how to reduce it to the minimum thanks to the technology which already exists. So depending on where you are in the world, it's either on new construction, mostly for developing countries, or it's on renovation when we talk about the more mature countries, and I think that's where the big opportunities is today. Making energy renovation of buildings is also an opportunity to add a lot of other benefits in terms of air quality, of health, of comfort, well-being, which have become more and more important. And it's an opportunity also to create local jobs. The construction sector employs today, if I just take Europe, 12 million people, and it's huge also in India, we just heard. And I think that the ability to relaunch the economy, which is in big crisis, and this sector, which has been in crisis, through programs for energy renovation, is a big opportunity. I think when I look at what Europe is planning, the Green Deal and is going to be very importantly focusing on that. We expect in September a new renovation wave to be announced by the European Commission, and many governments are also working on this topic in different countries. So what is the best way to do it? On paper, you have three main instruments. You have regulation, you have incentives, and you have setting the right price for energy and carbon. When I look at the vote, people think that incentives are very important, and grants, I think it's one element. And I think that given the need to relaunch the economy, it's probably a very important one. But depending on the sector, when you talk about public buildings, when you talk about non-residential, residential, I think the best way to push renovation is the usage of different of these tools, and they can be combined in different way in cooperation, like the CEO of Danfoss was saying. So my message is that it's a very big way to create jobs. The jobs will be mostly in what for Saint-Gobain is our customers, so companies which are doing the construction activity. It's also true for industrial companies, even though we are very productive, but we are creating new plants every year linked to this renovation wave, which is growing. So I think it's an ideal topic as we come out of this COVID crisis. Thank you.
Thank you for your excellent remarks, Mr. Schallender. So next, we have Ms. Audrey Zibelman, Chief Executive Officer, CEO of the Australian Energy Market Operator. Over to you, Ms. Zibelman, for a brief introduction, please. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for the opportunity to participate. And again, I congratulate the IEA on hosting this very important conversation. So as the Australian Energy Market Operator is the gas and electric market operator for Australia, and my comments are really around, from that perspective, how do we fit energy efficiency into the integrated power system so that it becomes part and parcel of how we manage energy as well as use energy and actually even support the grid into the future. And I come from a very perspective of looking at today in Australia. One of the things that we're seeing is that we have as a country the fastest per capita growth of rooftop solar. And so for us, we're looking at people putting on panels on their roof about once every 6 minutes. And as a system operator, one of the things that we have to think about is how we're going to integrate those resources into the power system of the future, which I think relates very much to this conversation of the role of energy efficiency. For Australia, what we're looking at is up until 2040, we expect to see 63% of our coal plants retire because of their age. Because of our climate and costs and where things are headed in this industry, we expect that these coal plants will be replaced by a combination of solar and wind, as well as storage and gas as the most economically efficient and distributed energy resources. Today, in parts of the region of our country, rooftop solar actually represents the single largest generator. And so we as a system operator have to think about how we're going to be managing these resources going forward to produce value to consumers. So when I think about this issue, I think about what's going to be necessary so that energy efficiency isn't the type of program that relies on government grants, but actually becomes part of the economic solution for the future so that we can make sure that we can develop these capabilities and they can be used worldwide as a value add to really provide access to everybody. To do that, I think there are the things, I would say the several things that I've heard from my colleagues. One is regulation has to work. And for us, regulation is both in terms of the resources that we use to manage the system, but the standards. So for example, consistent standards of energy efficiency in building. So that's very clear to building owners and developers. And also around the requirements of the devices. We found, for example, this year in some work that we've been doing, a lot of the inverter systems don't work when they're managed, when there are voltage problems on the power system, and we lose these resources. In the future, when we depend on these resources, they need to be made available. So we have to make sure the regulation is right. The second is the markets and the incentives. As we build the power system around the consumer, we have to make sure that the consumer gets value for that dollar. And so I think of the markets changing so that consumers are more proactive and actually become part of the taxonomy of the grid, that they can be used and actually not just incented, but compensated appropriately for those pieces. And the third is to represent the fact that a lot of investment needs to be made in the computing environment. Now that we're going from a resource intensive that uses fuel, whether fossil fuel or nuclear fuel as a resource, to one that depends on the climate, we need to make sure that the power system and power system operators have the capability to visualize what's happening, forecast what's happening, and manage what's happening and have enough devices. Because if we can't do that, then we're not going to be able to take advantage of these technological innovations. So I'll leave it for that right now. I look forward to further questions and discussions.
Thank you, Ms. Zibelman. Your presentation is not only, well, that was very good presentation on the energy efficiency, but also the IEA is also working on this electricity security issues, covering how the power market design should look like in order to ensure to keep lights on. So thank you very much for this very interesting presentation. And finally, we have Dr. Johan van Zyl, the president and the CEO of Toyota Motor Europe. So Dr. van Zyl, can we have your brief introduction, please?
Good morning. My name is Johan van Zyl. I'm the president and CEO of Toyota in Europe, but I'm operating officer of Toyota Motor Corporation in Japan. Thank you very much for this opportunity to share some thoughts and ideas with you with regards to this very important topic. Now, if we look at the automotive market, I think there are a few areas where we must focus on in terms of energy efficiency. And the first one, of course, is that that of the powertrain we are using in vehicles. Over the last few years, since 1992 already, Toyota embarked on hybridization and electrification of the powertrain. And this powertrain of ours, we've now sold more than 15 million of them worldwide. Now, the success of the powertrain has led to the fuel consumption in Japan has been reduced by 96% over the last 2 decades. And we've also utilizing that technology in Europe. And in Europe already more than 50% of our vehicles sold has got the hybrid powertrain. Now, the future, of course, will be electrification. Electrification will be required to reduce the CO2 and to achieve the European targets with regards to CO2. That means not just the hybrid vehicles, but also battery electric vehicles, hydrogen vehicles, plug-in hybrid vehicles. And the spectrum of technologies will have to be available for the world, because some areas in the world can, for instance, not accommodate, for instance, battery electric vehicles because the electric grids is not available. From our point of view, of course, it's not just about the usage of the vehicle itself, but it's also the process of manufacturing the vehicle where we need to look at the efficiency of energy. And that's where we've been focusing on a lot over the last few years. And we could reduce our energy utilization quite dramatically. In the manufacturing process, for instance, all our manufacturing operations in Europe, of which we have 9, is run on green energy, renewable energy. And all our operations in Europe, for that matter, is green energy and renewable energy. And we want to expand that to even include our retail operations to be on green energy. So energy efficiency within operations is critical, not just from a cost point of view, but of course also from a CO2 point of view. We are even thinking about not using energy at all, just use kinetic energy, for instance, in some of our manufacturing processes. We refer to that as karakuri. So we don't use pumps or electric motors. We just use gravity, or we use kinetic energy to move things around. Also in the supply chain, in the logistics side, we need to focus strongly on energy efficiency. For instance, our supply chain is quite long. We need to use many modes of transport, train, marine. Marine is still a very big contributor to our CO2. So that needs to be reduced as well. So that field is also very important in terms of reducing our CO2s. And then, of course, if we look at the usage of vehicles, we are supplying vehicles onto the market. We need intelligent transport systems. We've also seen that in a crisis like COVID, that people moved back to private transport away from public transport because the masses cannot be put into one space at that time. So we need to think about those things in future as well when we design transport systems or road infrastructure. And then, of course, what's the future? The future for us is zero emission mobility. That means focus on hydrogen, focus on battery electric vehicles. Hydrogen we see as a big growth opportunity, especially in the heavy transport like trucks and buses. By 2030, our calculations show that hydrogen manufacturing, if we get scale, can be competitive on trucks and buses. And therefore, we see that as kind of a big opportunity for development. We've also seen policy implemented now with the COVID-19 crisis that governments, as we're starting the recovery process, they are supporting with incentives, green technologies, eco-friendly vehicles, battery electric vehicles, but also low emission vehicles. And that, I think, is the way to go. As we restart the economy, let's support the right technologies. Let's make sure that we create a sustainable economy, taking all these aspects into account. So from our point of view, energy efficiency is a very, very important topic. And I'm very pleased that the IEC is really keeping this topic on the top of the agenda. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Van Zyl. The very interesting and the relevant intervention. And of course, it's about the efficiency not only at the consumption, level, but also in terms of the older supply chain in the manufacturing process. And also your point about this kind of transportation, new technologies for transportation. That's very important for the clean energy transitions going forward. Thank you very much for that. Now, I would like to start off the discussion first with a question to our three panelists from industry. So Mr. Kumar, Mr. Shalender, and Mr. Van Zyl. And of course, if the commissioner, the Abzaid, and Mr. Fausing is still connected on the line, your comments are also very welcome. So first question to the industry panelists. So you've heard the earlier remarks about the jobs and economic growth potential from the stimulus, the investments in energy efficiency. So what advice would you have for governments to ensure that these benefits are realized? So what is the advice?
Okay.
Can I start with Mr. Kumar?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Sadamori. So, so basically, let me just mention something that we are already in deep discussion with the ministry as we open up, and why this was, which has been. Let me give you the brief background. I mean, as we have seen in the pandemic, a lot of migration has taken place back to the villages, and our proposal, which is now under active consideration, is to strengthen rural infrastructure in a sustainable manner. We call it convergence, and let me spend a minute as to what we mean. While we have seen large-scale, utility-scale renewable energy power plants at very low tariffs and so on and so forth, the fact of the matter which is existing in India is that the distribution network is extremely inefficient. And therefore, even if I have a 4 cent power coming to my bus bar, by the time it reaches a rural consumer, the cost of that power goes up to about 8 cents. So what we are doing is the following. We call it convergence, is that we are putting together small solar power plants in remote rural areas next to the demand centers, which are villages and others. We are putting together solar plants between 0.5 megawatt to a maximum of 10 megawatt. And we have given a tariff levelized for 25 years of about 4 cents per kilowatt hour. We are now integrating battery storage with energy efficiency. And how we are doing this? For an additional 1 cent per kilowatt hour, we are providing battery energy storage at the local level and also lighting up the entire villages with energy efficient street lights. We are also providing LED efficient equipments to the rural households, and we are going to leverage carbon finance for that. So that's one package. The second thing to drive home efficiency from a policy perspective is the agriculture sector in India, which consumes about 20% of energy. Because it is the farmers don't pay for electricity, the pump efficiencies are very, very bad. So the second modular approach in this is to increase the tariff. And remember, 4 rupee tariff is only for solar, 5 cents is with batteries and street lights, 6 cents or 6.5 cents per kilowatt hour. We are also going to replace the neighboring pumps with energy efficient pumps. So in this complete package, the rural infrastructure becomes sustainable. It is based on clean energy. B, on a 5 gigawatt solar plant, we will provide 250 kilowatt hours of storage, and almost 3 million street lights will be installed in this. The number of jobs that will get created over the next 3 years are estimated to be at least 200,000. That too in rural areas where the unemployment rate is very, very high. So this is the part of convergence that we have already put together. Work has already started in a state. We have installed more than 100 megawatt of decentralized solar, and this is the big thrust that we are going to give as far as India is concerned.
Thank you, Mr. Kumar, for this very concrete and down to earth the kind of answer. Thank you very much for that. I really appreciate it. Can I turn to Mr. Shalendar?
Yes. What I would say is that at the moment in many countries, because of the COVID crisis, in a number of countries, new construction is going to be depressed, which means that a lot of people in the construction industry, which were being used for new construction, are available. So I think the competencies, all that exist. So government, by helping renovation in buildings, energy renovation in buildings, can use these competencies. Now, if you want to be effective, government should use the right policy mix depending on the segment. I mentioned 3 points, pricing or tax. I mentioned incentives and regulation. You don't need to have exactly the same mix of political instruments if you work on public buildings, or if you look on non-residential, or if you look on individual residential. So it would need to enter into details, which I don't have time, but I think having the right policy mix will make sure that these people in the new construction sector are not going out of job, but are used to relaunch energy efficiency and using their competencies.
Thank you, Mr. Shalender. So may I turn to Mr. Van Zyl? What is the perspective from the auto manufacturer, please?
Well, I think, as I've said, from an auto manufacturer's point of view, in terms of restarting the economies, of course, governments are using incentive programs to stimulate demand. And what we've seen in Europe, for instance, is most of the big markets like France, Spain, Italy, they've already launched their programs, and Germany. And these programs are very strongly focused on eco vehicles, which is good. I think this is putting the focus on the area where we need to focus. It's sustainable, it's long-term, and it's a transition phase leading us into a new renewable energy environment. And I think that we should encourage governments globally that the focus should be on the new economy and to support that and have very clear policies and direction. For instance, on hydrogen, if hydrogen is going to be part of the energy mix in future, now's the time to really act swiftly. We need to create scale. We need to make sure that we can create an environment in which we can in future utilize hydrogen. Hydrogen can be one of the very important carriers of energy into the future.
Thank you very much. We fully agree to the points about the need for scaling up the hydrogen. That's the message from our hydrogen report that we released last year. Thank you very much for this. The Commissioner Abzaid, I wonder if you have any additional comments to this discussion.
Yes, I mean, while I totally agree on the comments that were just made, I mean, and some are very practical and down to earth, really valuable points. I would like here to also maybe mention the role of innovative arrangements and approaches. We've seen also on the continent some approaches, including the private sector that provides for renewable energy and using the digital solutions for pay as you go. So the model of prosumers. I think this is also an interesting model to maybe to implement now that we are seeing also digitalization growing across the continent, and it's an opportunity for us also to seize. I think it's important that our governments, and that's also one of the things that we are working with them on, is to review the regulations and the policy so as to allow the involvement of the private sector in both the provision of energy at that scale and using these new and innovative solutions for energy, especially in rural areas and peri-urban areas. And I thank you.
Thank you. The very interesting and important point. Thank you very much for this. Is Mr. Fausing still on the line?
Yes, I am.
Please.
Sure. So, no, I very much agree. Very strong points made also, certainly on digitalization. I just have one one small addition to this, and very brief, and I think it's clear in certain emerging markets, you have a lot of the buildings that you're going to need in the next 20, 25 years is going to be built now. So that's the opportunity there to do that right. But the point I wanted to make is that if you go to the more mature markets where you have a very big building mass, I think we need also to ensure that the attention is on the renovation rates. I think the IEA has pointed this out also very clearly, that it is necessary to get a higher cadence in renovating both public and private buildings, because that's a very big source of the energy footprint today, and also a source of very short payback time opportunities. Just would like to add that maybe to the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. These are real great points. Let me ask the question to Ms. Zibelman. So what role can technology play in driving energy efficiency from the perspective of the power and the gas, the market operator?
Thank you can you hear me? Yes. Thank you very much for the question. For us going forward, I think it is, in terms of technology, it is really the ability to create intelligence at the behind the meters, what we look at. So for when we see the system going forward, it is around redesigning even the built system around the use of the consumer and the ability of a consumer to increase or decrease what they're doing in terms of electricity use, so that actually it could be a powerful resource on the power system. So rather than thinking about in the future where generation has to follow demand, you actually think about it just the reverse, and actually the ability of virtual power plants, the integration of electric vehicles, the use of storage, the use of intelligence in terms of how we use energy, can be used to actually manage the entire energy system so it becomes more efficient. And so what we're doing is what we're effectively saying, that with the right kinds of policies and the right kinds of approaches, that demand could actually become a resource that we would manage as part of the overall power system, provide those payments back to the consumers, so that it rather than becoming just a simple way of compliance, entering into new business models where energy becomes really an asset for the consumer, then becomes really an economic advantage as opposed to simply just a regulatory requirement. And I think that's where intelligence in the power system and intelligence how we manage the power system is going to be so critical.
Thank you, Ms. Zibelman. Excellent point. I mean, yeah, I fully agree. Thank you very much for this. So now, we have been receiving many questions and comments from the audience. So I would like to pick up some, and I would like to ask the questions to the panelists. So the first question goes like this. So what are the panel's views on this, and how energy efficiency innovation can be successfully scaled, especially in terms of effective ground level implementation?
May I start on this?
Oh, yes, please.
Yes, because we operate at scale, I think it's very important. And to me, one of the things that's going to be very important moving forward is standardization. So if we have standardization around regulation, standardization around markets, so that wherever anyone puts an electric vehicle, it's the same design, it works the same way. Where you put your smart building and smart equipment, it works the same way. I think we can get to scale much faster. It's the fact that so things like interoperability, understanding the role of platforms and understanding the role of standardization, not just in terms of the equipment, but actually how we use the equipment, because electricity works the same way internationally, will allow us to reduce the cost, increase the ability to get penetration, and make it very much easier for everyone. So it's taking those transaction costs out, I think could be very valuable. And it's something we haven't done well in this industry, but something we should do well going forward.
Yes, Pierre-André
Yes,
Chalendar, maybe I can complement what has just been said. If I take the building sector, I think that norms, labels, and then regulation is a very effective way to scale up, because it reduces the cost of this innovation through mass production. You know, if you have because of and that has been done in Europe, for instance, for new buildings. With when you put in place a regulation, and now new buildings in Europe are built with very little energy consumption in terms of heating and air conditioning when they are well done. The way to do that, initially the products, and that was a break on the fast implementation, was because the new products were more expensive. If you have labels and norm or regulation, then it becomes not more expensive. So building today a new building after a few years of this regulation being put in place is not more expensive than before, because you have reduced the cost of the innovation through mass production for industrial companies like we are, and that's the most effective way, in my view, in our sector.
Thank you, Mr. Chalendar. Yes, any other views? Yes, please, Mr. Van Zyl.
I think, the one thing that will be required, especially with new technologies such as, for instance, hydrogen or even battery electric vehicles, collaboration is, of course, important. That's collaboration between the regulators, between the total supply chain. For instance, on hydrogen, needs collaboration with the manufacturers or producers of hydrogen, then, of course, the distributors, and, of course, the hydrogen vehicle manufacturers or truck manufacturers or bus manufacturers. What would the standard, for instance, be? Will we use a 350 pressure tank, or will we use a 700 pressure tank? These things are very important in terms of how are we really going to get scale, because if we don't standardize, as been said, it's very difficult. For instance, just a simple example is on electric vehicles. How many different sockets do we have on the cars? If each manufacturer's got its own design, it's very difficult to implement infrastructure. So these things need to be standardized. So very strong collaboration is required between the participants in the value chain.
Thank you, Mr. Van Zyl. Can I move to the next question, which is the more specific question about this the building energy efficiency, and this also is linked to our second Menti live poll. So there are many the votes on the building retrofits and the building energy efficiencies. So the question is, how can building energy efficiency be improved for rented properties? So what would be the kind of effective incentives for them? There's rather difficult question about the incentive setting for this the rented type of properties. So I wonder maybe Mr. Chalendar is ready to answer this question, please.
Yeah, this is a question because it shows that there is an issue, which is that you have to make an investment and then you get benefits. So in the case of the renter, the benefit is for the one who is going to pay a slower bill for his energy or his air conditioning, but he's not the owner, so he's not he has no incentive to make the offer. So you need cooperation for the fact that if the owner is making the investment, then part of the savings on which the tenant is going to make is back to the owner through probably an increase of the rent, because it's a better location. So I think depending on the regulation which exists, and the laws are different in each country, you need to find the proper mechanism to incentivize the owner to do the job, even though it's the tenant who is going to benefit from it. There is no answer generally. It depends on the laws which exist in each country.
Yes, I understand that it depends on the various situation and the conditions. Can I move on to the question with the kind of a more broader the scope in terms of the sectors? So the next question is about the financing. So how challenging will it be to attract private investment in energy efficiency, in particular in this very uncertain time?
Can I answer?
Yeah, please, Mr. Kumar, please.
Yeah. Thank you very much. No, it's a very interesting question, and how you can attract financial capital is by innovative projects that you can create, like the one which we mentioned. B, if we are having good payment security measures that we can possibly have. C, can we create an energy efficiency project which is away from the usual problems that the projects face in terms of monitoring and verification, and therefore a combination of renewable energy storage and energy efficiency takes away this whole issue of risk that is associated with a normal energy efficiency project. B, it can be scaled up if innovative project financing and structuring is done. And C, once it is at scale, you will attract a lot more private capital than you possibly otherwise do as far as energy efficiency projects are concerned. That's what I wanted to say, and I would also like to apologize. I'll have to leave at this point in time, and thank you very much for the very engaging discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Kumar, for your excellent contribution to this panel. Thank you very much for that, and of course we hope to see you soon in the near future. Thank you. Does other panelists have any particular view on this question? If not, can I turn to the next question? So this was about the financing investment, but also I think that we need to also need to cover the kind of a technology aspect. So so the next question is where do you see gaps in technology where more innovation is needed to scale up the energy efficiency? So what are the kind of the area that requires the more the enhancement in terms of the kind of overcoming the technology needed technology gaps?
I would just I can start on one. It's a technology gap, and it's also, I think, a gap that we're going to have to deal with. So in the built environment, our power systems, particularly at the distribution systems, were really built for one way, to generate power and then consume it at the meter. As we move forward, if we're going to go from virtual power plants to actually thinking about demand at scale being a resource, we're going to need to have the computing capability, the data assumption capabilities, as well as the right kinds of investments on the distribution systems to be able to manage these types of resources at scale. So understanding that and understanding really how do we move from a power system that was based on a command and control to one that's more distributed and uses AI and machine learning better is going to be very important if we're going to move forward, particularly when you think about co-optimizing not just energy usage, but also automobiles, as well as heating and all of the various elements. The ability to use machines and AI will be critical.
Thank you. Yes, and also that would also have an impact in terms of how we should design the electricity kind of systems as a whole. So this is a very profound question that you raised. Thank you very much for that. Does other panelists you see any kind of the technology, the gaps area that they see in their respective the sectors, like buildings or the kind of transport?
Yeah, I think if I could say something about the auto industry, or more than the auto industry, because I think this technology cuts across many applications, and that is storage of energy. Energy storage is going to become one of the key focus areas into the future. If we talk about renewable energy being wind, solar, for instance, the time of generation and the time of consumption, there's gaps. And of course, we know the sun doesn't always shine. So we need storage capacity. And for that, battery technology is still a huge area of technological development, which would be required, not just to improve battery capacity or energy storage capacity, but also the speed of charging the batteries, the speed of and then the slowdown of getting energy out of the battery. These technologies, heating systems on these batteries or cooling systems, this needs to still have a lot of work to be done into the future. So that is an area where work needs to be done. And then the second area, I think, is the integration of technologies. For instance, on the renewable energy side, is how can we combine solar and wind with hydrogen, where we use the solar wind energy to generate hydrogen, which can be stored, which then can be utilized as an energy carrier. So that type of work, I think, still needs to be focused on a lot.
May I say
Please,
something?
Mr. Shalenda.
Yes,
please.
I would like to say, I think in the building area, the beauty is that I don't think there are big technological gaps. Most of the solutions exist. Probably an area where we need innovation is, and the CEO of Danfoss alluded to that, is to find solutions, whether they are digital, whether there are other ways to fasten the collaboration between the key stakeholders. But I think that's where, if we want to speed up, we need to, so I don't know whether it's new service companies with new business model, but I think that's more the area where we need innovation at the moment.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point. And kind of innovative, the whole system approach would be very important in all areas. And also, your comments also, the answer relates to this sector coupling, and also the more electrification of various sectors. So I think that's a very important area to move the energy efficiency going forward. Do the Commissioner of Zaid or the Mr. Fausing, you have any additional comments on these points?
I think the point that was mentioned earlier, it's not about gaps, it's not about, I mean, whether it's investments, whether it's gaps, whether it's technology. I think the point here that was mentioned also earlier is that industry has to be aligned. The problem occurs maybe in our region is that we have, for instance, a country like Tunisia that has excellent standards, but then suddenly the black market is submerged with appliances and coming from elsewhere that are not following the same standards. So unless really the industry is tightens and the standards are tightened across the globe, we're not going to see this energy efficiency applied or used as or scaled up the way that we would like to see. Another approach is to use the regional approach. I mean, so not only one country, but to harmonize these standards and regulations across a region. And that's what we're trying to do as well. So as to create a critical mass also for the efficiency to happen. Maybe these were the 2 points that I needed to say. So on the one hand, a regional approach, but also tightening the standards industry side. And it was mentioned before about the supply chain and how the supply chain need to harmonize the standards all the way. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Commissioner. The excellent points. It seems that we are approaching the end of this session. So before we close, I would like to thank all of our keynote speakers and panelists here. So Commissioner Abzaid, Mr. Fausing, Mr. Kumar, he left a few minutes ago, Mr. Shalender, Ms. Zibelman, and Dr. De Van Ziel. Thank you very much for joining us in this session today. You have given us great insights based on the depth and breadth of your knowledge and experience. And we are very grateful that you could share your time with us today. From myself, the entire IEA team, thank you very much, everyone, for joining us, participating in the session, including polls, and also sending through the good questions. So thank you very much to all, and we will see you back here in an hour for the next session, starting at 12:30 in Paris time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll see you soon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
you.
Bye.